was the same man, looking exactly the same, his eyes still red. They reminded me of a demon. I then started to flick through each photo once again, and in each photo, in the same spot, stood this mysterious stranger. The more I looked, however, the more I began to think he wasn't smiling at the camera, but instead was laughing at my family standing there. I didn't know who this man was, and I didn't know why he was always standing between my parents and watching my family. I tried to think of different rational explanations. Maybe this man knew that we took a photo every year and so planned to always be in the background of the photo. Or maybe it was one of my parents' friends playing a joke on us. I managed to convince myself that it was someone my parents knew, and they were just playing a joke. This helped comfort me enough and helped me try and forget what I had seen. I decided to turn on the television to further take my mind off of it. I switched it on and watched whatever was on for an hour or two, but that's when it happened. The words breaking news appeared, interrupting whatever sitcom I was watching. The newsreader began to speak, and an image of a man I knew all too well appeared on the screen. Terry Sturt, convicted murderer, has died today, the newsreader said, as the image of Terry, my parents' close friend and the photographer of all of our family photographs, appeared on the screen. He died in his cell after a long battle with cancer. Terry was convicted back in 1996 of the murder of Edward and Teresa Barter, the newsreader continued, as a photo of my parents flashed up on the screen. Terry Sturt has always maintained that he was innocent, and today, in a deathbed confession, he revealed who he believes is responsible for the death of what Terry calls his closest friends. Terry claims that the man responsible is a man by the name of Paul Randling. However, 7 News can reveal that Paul Randling had long since been dead before the murders of Edward and Teresa Barter took place. The newsreader finished speaking, and the sitcom I was watching began to play once more. I couldn't get the man out of my head, though. Paul Randling, Paul Randling, Paul Randling. My brain repeated over and over. I hadn't heard of the name before, but I had to know who it was. I pulled out my phone and opened Google and typed the name Paul Randling into the search bar and then hit search. Most of the results were for Facebook profiles of people with that name. After a bit of searching, however, I managed to find an article with the name Paul Randling in it. I began to read. Murderer, Paul Randling will face life in prison. Paul Randling has today been sentenced for the hideous crime of a double murder. He has been convicted of murdering a young couple in cold blood. The couple's names cannot be revealed, but it is known that they have left behind 2 young children. Randling, 58, will be facing life in prison for his crimes and will likely never see the outside of a jail cell ever again. Underneath the article was a small drawing of Randling, and it was unmistakable. This was the man in the photograph who was standing behind my parents. I didn't know what this meant. How could this man who was jailed in the 1940s be in the background of all of my family photographs? I decided to look at the photos once again just to make sure it was the same person. I picked up the small stack of photos and looked at the one on top, but the man was no longer standing behind my parents. He had moved. I looked through all of the photos, and it was the same in all of them. He had moved from behind my parents. He was now standing right behind me.